Good evening, people. Welcome back to Where the Owls Sleep. Not your Sunday sessions, it's the Parliament. Newly branded Parliament. Stocky, how's it going? New background, new settings. You alright?
Yeah. New tan, new house. Everything's changed.
Big changes this weekend for you. Not much change for West Ham, but everything else has changed.
No, there was a little bit of change. We weren't embarrassed at Anfield, so I'll take that.
Yeah, fair point. That's a very fair point. But we have the usual hours in place this week. John, how's it going, mate? You good?
Yeah, not too bad, thank you. Still reeling from the record-setting relegation, but we'll talk more about that later.
Yeah, we'll get into that. We'll get into that. Jack, you good, my friend?
All good, mate. Yeah, all good.
Good to hear. Good to hear. Right, let's get into it. So, before we get into putting John through his pain and his misery, let's have a little catch up on this weekend's Premier. Well, that probably starts John's misery, to be fair, but let's have a little catch up on this weekend of Premier League results. Good weekend for me, to be fair. Just had a little chat with John beforehand. He only caught the second half of Man City Crystal Palace. Did anybody else manage to watch much of the weekend's football?
I watched City
Yep.
and Newcastle, so I think I chose the games with goals in. But yeah, they're the only two I watched. I watched 2 minutes of Arsenal and just couldn't be bothered. So probably best that Samir's not here for that.
Yeah, well, he's meant to be here. He should be here soon. We can ridicule him when he arrives. But for now, he's holding. He can hold out. How about you, Stocks?
I watched both of today's games. Sadly, I missed the City game as I was going to watch your game, mate.
You watched me put in a fantastic assistant refereeing performance for 82 minutes of the game.
Yes. Thoroughly nice Saturday in the sun, as you could tell by my burnt head.
Yeah, fair. I managed to catch up on everything, to be fair, and then watched most of bits of today's games on split screens and such like that. But for me, fantastic weekend, to be fair. Apart from Villa winning, everything went my way. Newcastle are now in prime position to get a Champions League spot. If we fuck it up from here, I will be very, very disappointed. That's it. Jack's had enough of me talking about Newcastle already. He's left.
Yeah, I'm sick
Not this again.
Yeah, positivity in football is alien to me right now.
I thoroughly understand. Because last time you was on, you was goading us about how Bolton had pulled out a massive gap over Orient, and now you're below us on goal difference.
Us, define us, because you just said Newcastle, so we're just picking and choosing now, are we? Because that's not how it works.
I support Newcastle, and Orient are my local team.
Right. Well, Stock's local team are also above us, so his second team and his now local team are above us. So, yeah.
I think they get.
I'm going to move to Barcelona. Then how about the next pod? Then how about that? Fuck off.
Oh, quality stuff. Right, as we have, none of us have really watched too many games, and no one wants to talk too much about the Premier League. I am going to move on to the next bit, which is this midweek games, Champions League. Plenty to play for in all four of the games. Well, I say all four of the games. One of them is 4-0 to Barca, so that's never going to be a turnaround. But would everybody agree the rest of the games are still either open or doors slightly ajar? Or would you also count Real and Arsenal as done?
I don't think you ever count out Real. I don't know whether. I mean, a lot of Arsenal fans I've spoken to have said the same thing. Where like they're just, if they concede early on, anything can happen. I think we've seen bigger leads than a 3-0 lead turned around. That's not me saying that it will happen, but I definitely wouldn't say that one's dead for the time being.
Yeah,
I can see Arsenal going through, but they'll probably lose on the night.
It's an interesting one, right? So when did away goals stop?
I think it's the second season, isn't it? Or
I think it's been longer than that, to be honest.
Well, the reason why I think it's longer, funny enough, my nephew, who's just turned 18, and he said to me on Saturday morning, he was just like, "Oh, I don't know what he'd seen it on, but the percentage chance of Real Madrid going through is really quite high." And I said to him, I said, "Yeah, because times have changed now. Like, is it bizarre if Real Madrid beat Arsenal 3-0 or 4-1? It's not. It's simply not that strange. If it was away goals, would it be strange if they beat them 4-0? That would be a big result, or 5-1 or whatever. But with away goals gone now, it's not that crazy for Real Madrid to beat Arsenal by 3 goals or more, is it?
No, it's not.
So that's why I think that's also probably because I guess that's a reason why they removed away goals. I assume because 3-0, 5-6, whatever it would be years ago, you'd be like, that's it, tie is over. But it's not totally dead, I think, at 3-0.
Yeah, I'm in exactly the same boat. If Arsenal can beat Real Madrid 3-0, Real Madrid can beat Arsenal 3-0.
For sure, yeah, for sure. Yeah. I mean, the Twitter meltdown could potentially be close to iconic if they do not go through.
Oh yeah, one thing I think we can all agree on, it would be one of the best things to ever happen to all of us sat here right now, if
Yeah.
it did actually get turned around on the night.
I imagine you'd have to start warming up your knuckles for the sheer volume of cruel tweets you would be sending at 10 o'clock on Wednesday night if that was the case. But
Especially if Newcastle have won on top of it,
Mate, I'm going to be a problem Wednesday evening if Newcastle win and Real Madrid go through. Let's just say that now. All of this traction that I might be gaining jumping on certain shows, I might get myself cancelled very quickly if that happens. But yeah, the other two ties are a little bit closer. What are we saying about Villa PSG? Because Villa at home, again, if they get an early goal and they get the atmosphere behind them, there's potential for them to do something special as well, which I believe is on Tuesday, that one. There's potential there. I'd say it's probably less likely than what we've just been talking about, but they've got some very good players, and Villa Park's a hard place to go.
Yeah. PSG
like
do look very good.
Yeah, it's probably more to do with where the first goal goes in that one. If PSG go 1-0 up, I think it's going to be a very long night. But like you said, if Villa did score the first, the atmosphere, the crowd could get behind them, take them with them.
Yeah.
Maybe.
I think Villa's biggest problem is that PSG have got some ridiculously good players going forward. So regardless of what they do, they could potentially, like, PSG are capable of scoring 3 goals in 10 minutes if they really turn it on. And that's the problem Villa come up with. As much as they're a very good side, if they have a couple of lapses in concentration, they could easily concede 2 goals with only conceding 2 shots at the same time.
I think if PSG go out now, they're just never going to win it, are they?
Oh yeah, 100%. Also, I think it would be absolutely hilarious if they go on to win it this season now that Mbappe's left and he's gone to Real Madrid pretty much just to win the Champions League.
So did Inter beat Bayern?
1-0.
No, 2-1. It was 2-1.
2-1. My bad. Sorry.
Yeah,
So Inter beat Bayern at Bayern then?
Yeah, Inter won in Munich. Yeah, they scored a late winner to make it 2-1.
Yeah, that's that's really as finely poised as you could want it as well, isn't it?
It is, yeah. And
as I say,
it would be hilarious that Harry Kane still failing to win anything other than the Stonewall Bundesliga with Bayern Munich.
Yeah. But that's another one, isn't it? With the away goals, gone. Previously, you'd look at that and go, that's going to be extremely tough for Bayern to come back from, losing 2-1 at home to Inter. But 1 goal, isn't it? Extra time, and that's it.
Yeah, 1-0 win for Bayern, and you're into extra time, yeah. Some interesting games, to be fair, apart from Dortmund and Barcelona. If that gets turned around, then we're looking at an absolute all-timer of an evening from Dortmund. But This Barcelona team seems a little bit too wise for such things.
That'd be like shades of, was it? Is it Deportivo that did it from 4-0 down? And like we're going back at least 20 years here, if not longer. I can't remember who they did it to. I'm pretty sure Deportivo did it to someone. 4-0 down in like a quarter or a semi-final and came back to win it.
Mm.
Yeah, I don't even remember that. Didn't Barcelona do it to PSG in one of the games?
Yeah.
They were like
Yes.
3 or 4 down and they won 7-1 or something on the night, something crazy like that.
6-1, 7-1, something.
It was 6-3 or 6. Yeah, it was crazy because it was like basically if you'd put a bet builder on it, you would have won because it was like Neymar scored, Messi scored, Suarez scored, like every man and his dog got booked, like over ridiculous amount of. Basically, it was exactly what Barcelona needed. That was an epic game. That.
Yeah,
But yeah, I can't see that happening at Dortmund.
No, definitely can't see that.
But if Arsenal get the early goal against Madrid, that's it, isn't it? Tie is pretty much over.
Yeah, if Arsenal get the first goal, that's tied up. I was reading, or someone had said to me sometime last week after the game that Arsenal haven't conceded more than 2 goals in a game for like a stupid amount of time.
Which is why they should not be going defensive. This is a true moment now where if Arteta flaps this, he'll never, reputation-wise, he can never come back from that. He's just got to go for
100%.
it. He's got to go for it.
100%. Yeah, if they mess this up, that is a full Tottenham kind of cock up. But as much as they go on about being Spursy, it's as Spursy as it gets.
Yeah.
Who's that coughing? Is that Samir coughing in the background? Let me see if I can bring him in. Let's bring him in. As we're talking about Arsenal becoming Spurs. What's going on, Samir? You good? Welcome to the show. Welcome to the show.
I'm all good. I was watching the show on my phone. I was driving back, and I was like, as soon as you started speaking about Arsenal, I put my foot down. I was like, I need to get there.
You can hear the slander.
Yeah, I was thinking, what the hell are you not talking about? All you're not talking about is what could happen next week, but you're not talking about the big win. That was a huge win. When not everyone
You're only as good as your last result, though, Samir, and you drew with Brentford yesterday, so we should talk about that, really.
No, it's true. I think, like we saw, we rested a few players, and I don't think Arsenal really cared. I know the league's gone. It's like, yeah, our thought is Real Madrid. We know we're 3-0 up. It's still not enough. It's still not enough. And how mad that sounds, but yeah, man, I reckon we can go there and do it. Because you know what's talking about how Real Madrid could like hurt us and score 4 goals or something. I think I saw a stat the other day about this like 476 minutes. I think we haven't conceded. No, I can't remember, like days or something. I can't remember. But
I was going to say 476 minutes isn't that many games, bro.
What minutes? I mean,
it's like
days.
5 games.
It's like days since we've conceded more than 3 goals in a game.
Yeah, no, that's fair. That's
it's roughly 24 hours for me and my team. We lost 4-1 on Saturday, so yeah, it's yeah.
I'm not gonna lie to you guys. I've been like, because it was my best friend's birthday, and I've been hanging all day, so I haven't really caught up with like results of yesterday and today. So yeah.
No, you're all good. We're already past the results. Newcastle beat Man United. That's all you need to know. We're in the hunt for the Champions League. The prime hunt for the Champions League now. That's all you need to know.
I saw that.
I know, Samir, you'll struggle to believe this one, but Southampton lost again. Thought I'd chuck that one out there. I know. Give you a moment to just digest that one. But
no way! I am so shocked about that one.
Well, you did get somewhat cruelly teased there, didn't you? Because the first goal was like 70 minutes, right?
73 minutes, yeah, and then 2 penalties saved as well. It was like you'd hear that and you think, oh, maybe they held on and got something. No, lost 3-0. If anyone can, it's us. You know.
Bonkers. Me and Stocky got in the van to drive to Reading, and it was 0-0. And we was like, oh, go on, Southampton, because it must have been about the 65th minute. I was like, they could get something from this. And then it was like,
Yeah,
penalty at Southampton. And we was like, please be Southampton. Then
yeah.
Ramsdale saved it. And then a minute later, you were 1-0 down. And it was like, for fuck's sake. All went downhill from there. But roll back to what you were saying a minute ago, Samir, about the league being done, yeah?
Yeah.
Do you think Arsenal have kind of took their eye off it a little bit early here? Because looking at Liverpool's form, if you had had a good run of league form over the last 5 games, the gap would be down to like 4 points.
Exactly. And we still got to face them, and they've got some tough games.
Yeah.
Tottenham,
And you took your eye off the ball stupidly early, thinking that it was done. And you're dropping just as many points as they are. That is the only reason you haven't caught.
Yeah. I think if you look at it, I think our last 2 games against Brentford and Everton, obviously we've had Real Madrid in the middle of that. I think we've had to rest a few of our players. I think if we didn't have to do that, then I think it would have been a different story. I think we would have beaten Everton and probably would have beaten Brentford as well.
That
It's
can't be
just the game.
an excuse, though. You're Arsenal, and you're kind of expected to go deep in the Champions League, so you should have a squad that's capable of maintaining both.
That's the biggest
squads.
issue. We obviously don't have a big squad. You see how many second string players we put out yesterday, and it's just it weren't a good game to watch.
I think that's a crazy way to look at it, to be fair, because Villa were doing it on both. Well, okay, they got beat by PSG, but PSG just about side. But they've maintained their Premier League form, and they're still deep in the FA Cup.
Yeah, but I think it was
they're Aston Villa.
We were shocked about like their second team a few weeks ago. Like we were shocked at how many players they have. They actually do have a big squad, and they did well to go into January and get 2 more, which we did the complete opposite. And we didn't get anyone. So like I look at Villa's squad, and I think their squad is probably bigger than ours. We're struggling on that front, as you can see. Like we gave you an amazing game against Real Madrid when we had our first 11 out. Not even our first 11 because we're still missing a few players. But the game yesterday, you saw we made a few changes, and they just weren't the same at all. Same ground, but obviously Brentford. But yeah, it weren't the same.
Samir, do you reckon, like in that sense, then is it the recruitment that's letting Arteta down, or is it Arteta in that sense? Because it's like,
go on.
Just because of what we were saying about Villa, it's like obviously they've recruited quite well to kind of be in a position they can go deep in 3 competitions.
Yeah.
Whereas you guys have been kind of writing yourselves off of the league, like from kind of like the new year, really.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I think it's definitely on recruitment. Like even from January, we're looking at like they're already looking at summer. They weren't even talking about signing players in January. They're talking about signing players in the summer, like players that we're linked with. So that was in January. So I don't even think they were looking at the league like that. Like I honestly believe they gave up because if they were serious, I think we would have made a few signings then. Even if it's just loans or whatever, we could have, it could have helped. Arteta was begging for signings. He was begging in every press conference. He was just saying, "Yeah, we need a striker. We're light." He was saying that since the beginning of January, right up until the end, and then we obviously didn't go and sign anyone. We put in a bid for Ollie Watkins, which I don't believe it was real, but like that was just stupid. But apart from that, I don't blame Arteta at all. I blame recruitment 100%. Squad's not big enough, and you can see that.
Okay, that's fair enough. Is he not part of the recruitment team though? I
think he is, but like I can't really like look at him too bad because, like I said, he was desperate for signings in the press conference. Every time they kept asking him, "Do you want signings?" He says, "Yeah, we really do need signings bad." But obviously, I'm looking at recruitment. They're looking towards, like I said, the summer. They're not looking at recruitment now. He said that we're going to go big in the summer, which I don't like, man. I don't like talking about transfers like right now. Like we've got a Champions League quarterfinal coming up. Like you said, we could have still chased Liverpool down, but they gave up from January, I'd say.
Not to just defend Arsenal here, James, but the reason why I saw that this weekend is because someone tweeted saying if Arsenal had won their last 7 Premier League games, they'd be level on points with Liverpool. And the reason I saw it is that a Southampton fan had retweeted it saying if Southampton had won their last 31 games, they would also be on target to win the Premier League. So, I mean, yeah, it's just one of those things that I also just think, what kind of idiot tweets something like that? Because you know that someone is instantly going to call you out on it and say,
Yeah.
yes, if we had won our last 7 games, yeah, then great. But we didn't. What do you actually think, Smith? Game on Wednesday?
That winning your last 7 games take is a little bit crazy. But at the minute the gap's, I think it's 13 points.
Yeah.
And Arsenal have won 3 of their last 9, I think. That is bonkers.
That is horrible.
So if they'd won 4 of their last 9, the gap would be what, 7? And if they turn one of them draws into a win, the gap's down to 5, and they've still got to play Liverpool, which could bring the gap down to 2. So it's like, as much as you could turn around and say, yeah, if they won like 10 games on the trot, they would have won it. All they would have had to do is not lose the 2 stupid games they lost and turn one of their draws into a win. And it's not like they've lost and drawn against excellent sides in that run.
The Premier League must be gutted because at Christmas time they must have been looking at that Arsenal-Liverpool game thinking that could be like the game of the season. And now realistically it means it doesn't mean anything, doesn't it? Like absolutely nothing. But the fixture computer, they must have been thinking, oh, imagine that every single day, the build-up on Sky Sports. I mean,
I don't know whether some... Sorry, go on, Smith.
I was going to say, we let everyone down on that part by the position. Go on, John.
It's funny because I do honestly think watching Liverpool today, and even when I was up there at the start of March, and I don't know whether some of it is because Liverpool kind of maybe have that subconscious, they know they're going to win it.
Yeah,
They look like they can be got at. I don't think they look quite as impervious as that points gap suggests they are right now. So it is kind of frustrating that there's not another team on their tail a little bit more.
Yeah. Yeah, I think Liverpool have taken their foot off the gas. They know they've won it. 13 points is a big gap. So I think, like if you look at Salah's form as well, no one's really noticed this guy's not done anything in the last few games.
No, don't worry. People have noticed that he's fallen off a cliff.
I haven't seen a single thing, but
Trust me, people are noticing. They won't let Salah not go. After the way Liverpool fans went on about Ballon d'Ors and stuff, they won't let that go unnoticed.
That's gone now. That is gone.
100%. That's gone.
No, by the end of the season, they'll bring it back up once they won the league. They'll be like, yeah, he's won the Premier League. Come on, he's definitely Ballon d'Or.
Nah.
I hate
you know what the Ballon d'Or's like though. It's normally someone who either wins the Champions League or wins in a national competition.
Yeah.
I think it might be Rafinha.
Oh, you know what? That's a shout.
Because I saw a BBC News article, I think it was last week or over the weekend. His returns this year have been like insane.
Yeah.
Crazy, yeah.
Actually, like ridiculous. I'm sure it's something like 22 assists or something in all competitions.
Top scorer in the Champions League, as we found out in the quiz.
Yeah, sorry, that was what it.
Yeah, we did.
He's 1 goal off equaling in the record of most goals ever in a Champions League season. He's 1 goal off that.
What?
Yeah, I know.
He's
got. I'm sure it was that he's got 10, and the record is 11.
Nah, I think the record. I'm sure Ronaldo got something crazy like 16, 17 one season.
Yeah, I think he did.
Oh, yeah, that's why I don't mess about the Champions League. Sorry, just regurgitate articles. Sorry, and wrongly as well. It's quite exciting. Oh no, it was goal involvement. It was which is a very woke stat, as we know. But it was goal involvement.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah.
I mean, we don't need to check whether that's true or not, but we'll just stick with that.
No, we won't. We won't fact check you, Jack. That's fine. We'll roll with it. We trust you. Right. So, main topic of the evening. A certain man is going to be sat in the spotlight.
Oh, yeah.
And we're going to be talking about his club. Let's have a little look. So, it's Southampton fan John. into the spotlight for the evening.
How we doing, boys? We're all right.
Yeah, well, we're good. We should be asking you if you're all right.
Do you know what? I'm at a point where, like, I mean, I know what we're doing is kind of unprecedented this season, but I don't want to sound really snarky in all hindsight 2020, but there's a large part of me that kind of expected something like this to happen this year. So I'm not quite as I don't have the kind of disappointment as I was expecting us to be so much better. I figured it could be a bit of a shambles at points. Interestingly enough, I'd also argue I've seen us, like during my lifetime, I've seen us in a far worse state than this. As crazy as that might sound.
Okay.
Yeah, so I don't know. Where do you want to start the whole thing off then?
Well, we might as well
Right from
start
the beginning.
at the beginning. Why Southampton? How have you become a Southampton fan?
Cool. So this is going to be the fun part because I get to give you ammo that you can all hammer me with for like the rest of the time now. So I don't think any of you know this next bit that I'm about to tell you.
Okay,
When I
well, at
first
least we
got
know
into
there's a fun part, John. So we
well,
can.
yeah, exactly, right. So when I first got into football as like a little kid, I basically just copied whatever my sister, like my older sister and my older cousin would talk about. So there was a spell of time where like I was a Man United fan.
Oh my god.
Um,
Hey!
so, and when Jack was talking about like growing up in Manchester and all this, and I was like, oh man, this is gonna suck when I have to tell him. But so
You know
like,
what?
little me that didn't really watch football and like whatever, just used to go, yeah, I'm a Man United fan, blah 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 blah. But the weird part of that was also strengthened by the fact that when Teddy Sheringham played there, my dad used to play squash with Teddy Sheringham's dad Paul, like
Okay.
like way back like way back when, and so there was a couple of times where like as a kid I got to go to Old Trafford and watch Man United and things like that. That's kind of crazy in itself. Um, but obviously I kind of had other interests and whatever, and then I didn't really get back into football until I started playing football a bit more, like in school when I was about sort of 12, 13. Um, and then around this time, like I know, Mitch, I know you've kind of got a picture of Matt Latisse ready. It's not him. This is so there was a point where I think everyone's in the playground, everyone's talking about certain players, and like you got Thierry Henry coming coming in. I think oh no, this was slightly before Ronaldo because Ronaldo probably came in a couple of years after this. But you've got all these like incredible players like Thierry Henry, Dennis Bergkamp, even sort of like in terms of goal scorers, Ruud van Nistelrooy. You got like Shevchenko, like Adriano, all of this. I tongue in cheek doubled down on the idea of James Beattie being like the just really just to wind people up. Going on about how like James Beattie was like the best striker in the Premier League. He's not done an absolute like lick of anything at this point. And then one day he scores a hat trick against Fulham, and for whatever reason, after that game, after that hat trick against Fulham, he goes on this kind of I don't know if you can call 18 months a purple patch, but that era of Southampton that everyone remembers Beattie was banging goals in basically started from there. So for like another year and a half, Beattie's kind of like I think like one season he finished literally I think 2 goals behind Van Nistelrooy and 1 goal behind Henry in terms of like the Premier League Golden Boot. We got to an FA Cup final, like where Klaus Lundekvam should have been sent off after like 30 seconds for trying to pull down Thierry Henry.
Yeah.
Like Henry goes off on this run, and I think Henry genuinely tried to help him by not going down. But if Henry had gone down there, like Lundekvam's last man, Henry's running clean for on goal. Um, yeah, so I kind of doubled down on it, and then in the end, I just kind of went, "Oh, do you know what? I'll just be a Saints fan." And it is the most like ridiculous and random reason that you could support a football club. That photo that Mitch has just put up was taken in December. So I went to Crystal Palace away, and I kind of knew through socials anyway. Like Beattie apparently does quite a lot of like the London aways when he can. And I was walking to the ground with my mates, and we're like chatting away, and I can hear this bloke up front of me, sort of like, and he's moaning about like our midfield. The only thing was he had a voice like Jack's. I was thinking, right, this guy don't sound like he's from South. And then when I actually took a look, it was James Beattie, and I was like, "Nah, there's no possible way this could be the case." But like, so I was like, I've got to do that whole bit. I hate doing it, but I was like, because it's him, I had to do it. I was like, yeah, I kind of need to get a selfie here, James. Kind of. He's like a really nice bloke. But I said to him, I was like, yeah, you do realise like the whole reason I support this club is literally because of you. And obviously, I didn't tell him the story, but he looked just as baffled as the rest of you did. So, so that's kind of what started it all off, really. Mitch, have you got the first 11 picture that I sent you?
Okay.
Yeah, there you go. So this was like 2004. This was the first Saints game I ever went to. So one of my best mates is a Fulham fan, and we went along to the cottage to watch Fulham Southampton. And this was at the point where you could actually just rock up on the day and just buy a ticket on the door. Like, I didn't have to get it in advance or nothing, but that was our starting 11. So if any names in there ring a bell,
Yeah, pretty much all of them.
All of them. Yeah.
Yeah.
This is like prime Premier League for most of us, all of us, really.
Well,
Isn't it?
that's a team now in this fucking league that would come 8th, 100%.
do you think?
That's a good side.
Yeah,
I suppose, yeah.
That's a good
James
side.
Beattie and Kevin Phillips, mate. That alone's going to get
Yeah.
you top.
I mean, for context, Beattie was gone in the January. He went to Everton in the January. Where do you think we finished that season?
Oh, good question.
15th.
Oh,
Which season's this?
2004.
Well, let me try and guess that. Let me try and guess what season this is.
I think it's
this is
2004 because we faced them.
2007.
It is 2004. So this was September of 2004.
Yeah.
Oh wow. I don't actually
We
know.
faced you in the final, did we? Where FA Cup final? Or was that the season before?
Yeah, we played you in the cup final a year earlier. So
Before, yeah, I remember.
I'm going to go with 20th.
spot on, Jack.
It would have been. Yeah, I've actually. Yeah.
Oh,
and that was crazy because that was the last day of the season when no one was relegated going into it, and we actually started the day off in 17th.
Yeah.
And we wound up rock bottom of the entire lot. I think we played Man United at home. I was working in a pub at that point. It was like a Tottenham season ticket holders place. So Spurs were playing at home that day, so we had the game on. We're like clearing up and all that. And I remember us going 1-0 up, and I was thinking, "Oh my god, we're actually going to do it! We're going to survive." Obviously, we lost 2-1. Portsmouth put out an absolute shambles of a team against West Brom, and West Brom managed to win 2-0 and end up sending us down. So everyone for years was going on about how it was Pompey that done us in. But that was with Harry Redknapp in charge.
So Beattie went to Everton, didn't he?
He went in the January to Everton, yeah.
Yeah.
Peter Crouch actually played quite a prominent role in that side going forward.
Yeah.
From when Beattie left, like Crouch kind of came in and took over that. He was kind of like Beattie's replacement in that 11. Anders Svensson was a lovely player.
Wait, so does that mean in that season you went from playing in the qualifiers of the UEFA Cup to getting relegated in the same season? Is that correct?
No, because it was 2003 that we played in the FA Cup final. So it was 03-04 that we were in Europe.
And it was
the following
04-05 you got relegated.
04-05 we got relegated, yeah.
Because they used to have that rule, like back in the day. If you got to the final, you got Europe the next season.
No, it only ever seemed to work that way because big clubs used to win all the cups. So say if Arsenal won the cup, the position would roll down to the league. So Southampton got into Europe a couple of times. It wasn't because they were, not sure if it was because they were runners up, but I think they qualified for Europe a couple of times because it rolled down to the league.
It was
later on.
No, yeah, it was 2003. We got in because of the FA Cup. So it was, and we went out in the first round of the UEFA Cup to Steaua Bucharest.
Steaua Bucharest, yeah.
Oh, jeez.
2-1 on aggregate.
2-1 on aggregate. Yeah, there you go. Yeah. We went out to them in like the first round. So we had like one quick fling in Europe, and then that was it for another like 12 years or so.
Yeah.
but,
Everybody
but
in
then, like,
2005 were probably thinking Steaua Bucharest, but back in 0203, that's a tough draw
Yeah,
to
I'm
get
not
into
saying
the UEFA
yeah,
Cup.
for sure.
That's a very
yeah.
tough draw to get into the
Yeah.
proper round of the UEFA Cup.
What a great
But
away
then,
day as well, Bucharest.
I really would have been, yeah. Could you like? I mean, obviously, me being like 14 at the time, that probably wouldn't have that wouldn't have worked.
You'd be like a kid in a candy shop, mate.
Oh, mate, my
You
long
probably would have
hair
been
down to
safer.
here at the
You probably
time and
would have
stuff
been
like
safer
that.
than me at 14, to be honest with you, John.
But yeah, imagine. No, God, man. Because then, but then I suppose that season was like, because then later on that season we played Aston Villa at home, and that's the first game that I went to at St Mary's. So I never went to the Dell. Like, never got to see it. Like, heard lots of stories about it through other people and that, but never got to see us at the Dell. But my first game at St Mary's pretty much set me up for life. That game there, the Fulham one, we lost 1-0. Um, but it was the St Mary's one was great. We were 2-0 up at half time. I think Crouch and Phillips scored. And of course, we lost 3-2. And that was pretty much like, if you wanted an indication of what was to come over the next like 20 odd years and that was a pretty good start. So, um, but it's crazy though, because then I would end up like over the next few years, I'd kind of go to games a bit more sporadically. Like I still went when we were in the championship and everything like that, but just I'd say I probably went to games maybe like 3, 4, 5 times a season as opposed to like going regularly. Because quite often there was me and a group of mates that would go and watch each other's teams quite a bit. So like I'd go like watch Fulham games and Charlton games and stuff like that, and then eventually drag them kicking and screaming to St Mary's here and there. Um, when I was saying earlier about how we actually went, what we're going through now, it's embarrassing. It's also deserved, but I've definitely seen us in a worse state as a club. And that'd go back to kind of like, so when we went down from the Premier League, following season, we lost the playoff semi final to Derby. No, we didn't. I think that was the year after. We lost, I think we did 2 years in the Champo, and then it was like, okay, we're in a bit of bother here. Rupert Lowe, do you remember him?
Yeah,
Or he's
yeah.
actually been in the news recently, but um, he was our chairman, and like in a kind of a similar way to like where you've got owners now, where it's like, yeah, he just built a new stadium and he doesn't want to spend any money on the club, and he was known for being quite like frugal and whatever. He was hated by the fan base, and he left, and I can't remember the name of the guy that took over, but the guy that took over basically came in and started like really going like gung ho to get us up to get us back up to the prem. So we ended up with a lot of players that were kind of aging on very very heavy wages for that level, and that we had to loan out, including someone that we loaned to Bolton called Gregors Raziak,
Oh,
who
yeah.
came up a few weeks ago when Jack was in the spotlight. Um, and it got, I think it was, and then it was the 2008-2009 season. Like we basically were stuck. Well, we had to get rid of a lot of players, but we were just at a point where it was we had to put a focus on like the academy and just trying to produce young players again. But we were really going to struggle because we only had like a few kind of more experienced heads to play championship football, and we gambled on like a cheap option for a coach, this guy called Jan Portvliet. And it was we were sold this vision of it being like total football, like I come from Holland, like I'm going to bring total football with me. The whole thing was a bit of a disaster, and as well as going into administration in the April of that season, we also managed to get relegated off our own form anyway, into League One, and that was the point where, like, I remember being it was Charlton at home. Charlton actually went down with us that season, and I remember that probably being like the all-time like worst moment is like getting beat by Charlton, horrendous performance, but also yeah, just also sort of like there was that idea because at that point it was like the club could genuinely have gone under, and I think people are always like, yeah, there'll always be a buyer and stuff like that, but Matt Latisse was involved in a consortium and that kept getting knocked back for various reasons, and it was genuinely looking like at one point we were going to struggle. I think we then thought we were going to get the 10-point deduction that season, but the Football League saved it for us for the following season in League One. So we started the 09-10 season on like -10, which I think give us them 10 points back and we would have finished in the playoffs. But thankfully, we got taken over by Marcus Lieber at this point. And this is kind of where everything over the next 15 years, all the ups and the downs kind of come from. Because when Marcus Lieber came in, he was very much committed to the idea of getting us back to like back amongst the top tier and all that. We definitely moneyballed it for that level for what it was worth. Like it was silly the signings that we were making at that level. Like we brought Ricky Lambert in straight away, and at that point he was just like a League One sort of like goal machine in himself. And I think just for absolutely no reason other than he was the next highest goal scorer, we just signed Billy Sharp for no reason. Not for no reason, but it was a very unnecessary sort of like luxury purchase. But we started like getting, we got Jose Font from Palace who were in the Championship at that point, and he was quite willing to come down to League One and like. So it all starts going a little bit more on the upward turn from there until Marcus Lieber passes away the following summer unexpectedly. Um, and at that point, we kind of just got left in the hands of the family. Um, and there was this Italian banker, Nicola Cortese, that had us, and he very much like he was kind of steering the ship in terms of like what we were doing as a club. So the ambition still sort of remained. We do the back-to-back promotions, which was amazing, absolutely amazing. Like some of the most fun time I've had, like in my time as a Saints fan, like the back-to-back promotions and things like that. Like ironically, I think it was like 2 years on from the Charlton game that I mentioned. We were playing them at home in League One, like about this time of year, and it was just like one like coasted. Absolutely, it's very rare that I can say in terms of my time of going to Saints game, I've watched us coast games. We genuinely coasted that one, and it's like it's such like a vivid memory, like knocking it about and just sort of like Olays going on at St Mary's, mad, 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 mad. But um, yeah. And then, like, did anyone want to jump in and ask anything at any point? Sorry, I'm just rambling away.
No, to be fair, I'm just taking it all in at the minute. I've got a few things written
Yeah.
down, but nothing really that applies.
I've
Like
I've
you've
I've
made
got
it sound
one.
a bit like a roller coaster, but from what I was
It
looking
kind of
into,
has been, man.
from
But
what I was
you
looking
are
into, you've
kind
had
of
a
seen as a yo-yo type team, though, aren't you?
We are now. Yeah, I think we're in that. We're in the bracket of like new yo-yos. Like,
yeah, you've just hit that point because I wouldn't say
yeah,
that was the case previously because going all the way back to like the 70s, you've only spent about 10 seasons outside of the top flight throughout that time,
yeah,
and it hasn't been up, down, up, down. It was like down, down for 7 years, back up, down for a few more years, back up, rather than it being one down, one up, one down, one up, like Newcastle did for a bit, West Ham did for a bit, and teams like Norwich have done quite a few times. You haven't never really been one of them sides, have you?
no, and I think even back in the '70s, there was a point where like we finished second only to like that kind of amazing Liverpool side and like things like that. So like we were not just there, but like some at times challenging
Yeah.
there and thereabouts. Like so, yeah, it's. I mean, I suppose the time that I've supported them, sort of like 2002 sort of onwards, that's probably been cool. Like that, it's been a bit more of a roller coaster in that sense in that time period. Um, yeah, like it's funny actually because obviously, yeah, because I mean, actually, I'm thinking about. I was saying the other day after the Spurs game, it's now the fourth time I've seen us relegated,
Mm.
like in the time that I've supported us. So, um, but then I've seen us promoted three times. So it's like kind of like yes, it ebbs and flows, right? And I'm sure it will happen again at some point. I
Yeah.
don't think it. I don't think it should happen sooner rather than later. If I'm honest, I think we kind of need an exorcism, like where we currently are. Like before, like I actually think that if we were to yo-yo, I don't think it benefits us whatsoever. There's a lot. I mean, I'll come to that in a bit, but it's like, yeah, we need to do a bit of work in terms of like clearing out like personnel before we make a go of it again. But um, yeah, it's funny because I decided to get a season ticket when we got back to the Prem because I was going to quite a lot of games anyway, and it worked out that I still got away with it as a student at that point. So got to my first game. We're playing Man United at home, ironically, and all the fans are chanting, "We support our local team at United." And the bloke next to me just turns around and goes, I can't even say that anymore. My local team's Leighton Orient. And I was like, sorry, what did you just say? and it turned out that, and like this is how like small world and crazy but like things can be with football, which is why I love it. But it's at the time I was working at a pub in Leytonstone, and this guy was a student at Queen Mary, and he literally lived about 200 yards from the front. Like his front door was like 200 yards from the pub that I was working in. And we worked out that for about a year or so, I'd been serving him, and we had absolutely no idea that the other
That's
was a
mad.
Saints fan. And we ended up with season tickets directly next to each other. It's like it's the most bonkers thing, and it's like so to this day, like I still go to games with him, and like there's a massive. Whereas prior to that, I didn't know any Saints fans, so I was always dragging my mates kicking and screaming. I've kind of gone on in the last like what was it like 13, 14 years where like there's this network of us now. There's like a good 5 or 6 solid, like homes, aways, like stuff like that, and it's just really bizarre how stuff like that works out. But like yeah, I thought I'd share that story because it is quite
Mhm.
it's bonkers basically. Like it's genuinely bonkers.
Chances of
Um, yeah, proper. Like, what are the chances of that?
it.
It's just absolutely mad.
Mm.
But yeah, I don't know. Do you want to kind of steer me because I'm just going to rant otherwise? Like, do you want to steer me with a couple of questions or anything like that? Or...
I've got a very quick one. So linked to what you said, obviously, when you heard me talking about my bitterness towards United. So you said that you
Yes.
started supporting them in 2002. So when I'm
Yes.
marching around school, frequently hating my life every day because of the fact United fans were just winning everything. There must have been at least a slight part of you that would have gone, why did I not just follow them again?
Yeah.
What because they've just won a Champions League again, and it's 3 years after they won the treble. You must have. I mean, simply some part of you must have gone, kind of fucked it here.
Do you know what? No. Like that's the weird thing. I think only because um as a teenager, I was very much like one of those like contrarian types that always like tried to go against whatever was popular at the time, like for whatever reason. And I think because of that,
Like
I kind of did.
kissing girls and all that.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
get you. I mean, same,
exactly
mate.
that,
Same.
man. Yeah, and it's yeah. So why would you want to do stuff like that?
Yeah.
No, so I think because of that, I kind of saw like I probably started supporting Saints or started like at least try like at least backing Saints because it seemed like it was like doing something that was a bit like underdoggy or whatever. Like um, it's it's yeah. So like I don't and I guess because I wasn't like madly passionately into football at that point, it was just kind of like who do you support? Oh, I support Man United. Did I sit down and watch games? No. Like was I overly invested on how they got on? Could I have told you who they were playing the next week? Probably not. So I guess because I didn't have that kind of initial tie to it, it didn't really bother me too much. And I don't even really get. I don't ever get a twinge now. Like um, I grew up in a bit of a weird house for that because it's like my dad was a Leeds fan, but he used to go over Spurs all the time when he was a kid. And he was basically just a glory hunter in the 70s. Um, my sister's a West Ham fan, but was also a Man United fan, which is what influenced me anyway. And my mum could care less. So like, it was, I never really had like it would have been a bit easier if my dad was just like, no, you're a Leeds fan, because at least then there would have been just a normal explanation for it.
So as a household, you've captured 25% of a Premier League team grouping then, nearly.
Pretty much, yeah, nearly, near enough. Like it's very very bizarre, like very very bizarre house to grow up in for football. And there's not really like a dominant team within the family. Like it's scattered about. Like there's uncles that are West Ham, one uncle that's Chelsea. Like so, there's not really like a domineering team within it. So yeah. Oh,
I can fully appreciate that. My family is very similar, which is why I went completely rogue. Actually, I
but I think
genuinely can't think of 2 people in my family that support the same club.
it's mad, isn't it? Because I think
Yeah.
I often when I say I'm a Saints fan, someone goes, "Oh, did you go to uni there?" Or "Oh, are your family from there?" Or "Did you grow up there?" And I'm like, none of them. Like literally none of them. Like I was literally just a bell end on the playground that just decided that like it'd be funny to say James Beattie was the best striker in world football. And that's genuinely why I'm a Southampton fan. It's like the most nonsense reason, but it is quite fun.
What this is sounding like is you're the only person on the planet that is a worse glory hunter than I am.
Yeah, actually, that's a decent point. Yeah, yeah, we don't get too many nosebleeds. Like we're not up that end of the table as often as you'd like to think. So
Mm.
it's like, oh, but then that did mean when I had a season ticket, I got to see a lot of the really good period. You know,
Yeah.
sort of like after getting promoted, and it's mad because I remember when Nigel Adkins got sacked and we brought in Pochettino, and it got the most like negative reaction from a fan base that you could imagine. Like we just like I think like me and the guys I was with, we were all of the opinion of like, look, once the whistle blows, like you support the team. If you're
Mm.
going to voice your displeasure at the club, you do it before kickoff. Like as soon as the whistle blows, like we're there. But I mean, God, look how that one aged. Like we were
Mm.
talking about like Maurizio Pochettino and Nigel Adkins, and like it's. But that being said, like Nigel Adkins, absolute like club legend in terms of like the back-to-back promotions, the weird poem in the press conference. But like brought through like really kind of like helped to bring through like the core of an incredible team.
Yeah.
Um,
So this
you
would have
could see them up
been
there.
summer of 2012, yeah? Summer of 2012 when you got promoted back to the Prem and Pochettino came in for 2012, 2013, I believe.
Yeah, that would have. Yeah, he came. So Nige gave us like we got about. I think it was like mid-January we got to with Nige. And the
Okay.
weird thing was, we were on like a 5-match unbeaten run because we were horrendous. Like we lost the first 4 games of the season, and I
Mm.
think everyone was a bit like, "Oh man, we're in a lot of trouble here." We just weren't adapting at all, and like slowly but surely, like Nige started to put something together, and we went 5 matches unbeaten, including like the game before he got sacked. We just got a draw at Chelsea, like at the Bridge, from 2-0 down.
Mm.
And everyone was just like scratching their heads, sort of like why have we done this?
Mm.
Um, but like, yeah, that Poch team it was special, man. Like what he did, like with us, it was yeah. I mean, like it's funny. I don't really have like a favorite moment supporting Saints, but like in terms of like a time period, 2013 to like 2016 was like potentially as good as it will ever get
Yeah.
in my lifetime. You know, without some sort of like solid like ridiculous kind of Newcastle style investment like that comes in and saves what we're doing. It's hard to believe we're ever going to kind of hit those heights again. And by heights, I mean literally getting to like a League Cup final and being in Europe for a couple of seasons. Um,
Beat Inter
we
Milan,
had,
didn't you?
we did, yeah, we did.
Yeah.
It was like we had I think we finished. I think the year that Poch took over from Adkins, we finished 14th, and then we went on to finish. I think it was
Eighth,
eighth,
eighth, seventh.
I was
eighth,
gonna hit that.
seventh, sixth.
Yeah.
Eighth, seventh, sixth, and then eighth again.
Yeah.
Um, and I don't know. It's a strange one because like during that, Cortese left to go to Milan. Um, we then just kind of went into kind of like boardroom sort of tombola because the Lieber family itself didn't necessarily really want the controlling stake in the club. Um, um, we also went through that kind of suffering of like what happens when you develop a team of like incredible players and incredible recruitment. They stopped coming for you because there was the summer of Southampton, which was unbelievable, where Liverpool came in and took like 3 players.
Yeah.
Um, but mind you, I couldn't believe we got 4 million for Ricky Lambert, which at that point was unbelievably good business. Like he was just at that point. He was like 32, 33, couldn't run. His movement was all like I think basically when Pochettino came in and the focus went to a lot more technical and there was a lot more into like the fitness was a lot more militant. Lambert tells stories himself about how like he try and like if they did cross country and stuff like that, he got hide behind trees and then try and run back and act like he'd done it. And then like Poch would just be like, "Yeah, cool, go do it again," and stuff like that. So like he he was just like, he wasn't a guy that was physically up to the demands of it, but we somehow got 4 million off Liverpool for him. And it's like, yeah, okay. Like, fair. But like Lallana went at that point. Lallana, to be honest, is like, him and Schneiderlin would be like my favourite players from that crop. Like Lallana and Morgan Schneiderlin. So that was sad to see them go. Lovren went, which was mental. And I think we managed to get that's when we burgled you lot, Samir, for Callum Chambers.
What will you say again?
Like you know Callum Chambers when we sold him to Arsenal.
Yeah.
That was amazing because it was like he saw, I don't know, I remember watching him and just thinking,
Is he? Yeah.
yeah, I didn't think he was even going to break into our first team at that point, and suddenly we got like 16 million off Arsenal. So yeah, okay, like we'll take that, you know. But
I
we
remember him.
became a club.
No,
Sorry, was that?
Yeah, I remember him at Southampton. I thought he was up and coming. Like we knew of Callum Chambers before we signed him. I thought he was up and coming, wasn't he? Like one of the names.
He was up and coming, but like I was never certain. Like whenever we watched him, it was like there was never anything that suggested he was going to like. We didn't really think he was going to be one of the ones that got sold on for like a profit.
Yeah.
So it was actually quite amazing when he did, like in a way. But I think we just became very good as a club at that point at producing. We just got very good at producing talent,
Yeah.
like recruiting talent, giving them a start in the Premier League, selling them on for a massive fee.
Yeah.
It does catch up with you eventually, because then eventually they came, like Tottenham came and took our recruitment staff, you know, like things like that. So it, yeah, it sort of tends to, yeah, like it comes back to bite you eventually. So you then wander into that territory because then the fan expectations up. And I, I mean, I said it to many Russell Martin apologists this year, but that's been one of my favourite things of the season is arguing with Russell Martin fans. But Claude Puel, when we finished eighth in I want to say 2016, and he got booed out of the club because the football was apparently negative. And it's like, yeah, it was negative. It wasn't the same as watching us under Poch or watching us under Koeman. I totally understand that. But I think there was a lot of Saints fans that after that 2 or 3 years have become quite disconnected to the idea that there's a very young part of our fan base that probably grew up with us being a big fish in a small pond at like League One Champo level, and then came up and in relatively short amount of time overachieved in the Premier League to an extent. And I think the fan base kind of like lost a little bit of realism, because I think suddenly it was like, guys, we could finish 11th in the Prem one season. That's actually not a catastrophe. But to a lot of us, to a lot of fans, it was like, well, we haven't qualified for Europe. The football's not as entertaining. It's like, yeah, you've got a massive squad turnover. Like you're losing sort of like Sadio Mane and like, you know, Dusan Tadic and players like that. Like you're not necessarily going to sustain those levels unless your recruitment is at this point insane or you're just lucky. And suddenly, like you go from bringing in players like Dusan Tadic to bringing in like, no disrespect, but Nathan Redmond's. The numbers just don't compare. And eventually, and I think that's kind of where it became less fun because you start to realise, and I feel like Jack will relate, and actually Mitch will relate to this in terms of like the Mike Ashley days as well. You do get to a point where you just go, yeah, we're just in purgatory. Like we're sitting here, like we're probably not going to go back to challenging at the level that at the levels that we were again. We're essentially waiting until there's not three teams worse than us anymore.
Yeah. Just treading water.
Yeah, 100%. Like it's like treading water in cement shorts at times. It's just sort of like it's just like, but it is because you know, like I've skipped a massive sort of like I've probably skipped a massive part of the timeline with that, but because like, under Hasenhüttl, there were parts of like that looked fantastic, but again, he had a very specific system that he played, like the 4-2-2-2. Danny Ings obviously was a big part of why that worked. Was like he had that really like hot streak with us. I'd argue that's probably some of the best football Che Adams has ever played, and a lot of that wasn't to do with goal scoring. It was almost what he did off the ball that allowed Ings the room and the space to do what he did. We sold Danny Ings, and then Che Adams was we never replaced him. it was almost like he was expected, like, Che Adams would just become the main man. Che Adams isn't that player. And I think we recruited so badly during that time with Ralph. And a lot of it was because we had a lot more flux in the ownership. And we had like a Chinese consortium, like a Chinese guy at the helm at one point. He was clearly sort of just like laundering money, really. Like, because a lot of these big money sales we never saw anything of. Well, like the money wise, we never saw anything of it, but we were constantly in trouble financially. And it will just catch up with you. And yeah, and it did get to that point where like they just weren't free. I think with Ralph Hasenhüttl, what we always ended up having was a patch in the season where we'd go and beat a lot of the teams around us, and that generally kept us up. And it was like a 2 month stretch of the season that would always be just enough to like see you over the line as such. Um, I think the final straw kind of came when I think he was asking for a lot of players, and then he just got bought a lot of players at the very beginning of well, he was gone within 3 months, but I think what he was asking for and what he got was very different. We then had an ownership change, so Sports Republic now have an 80% stake in us. In that time, they've pretty much overseen, some of the most god awful recruitment in terms of managers, and like largely because as well, like it's you've got a group of players that are being asked to play two very, very diametrically different styles. Like Hasenhüttl, it was very high press, very high intensity. We sacked him and brought in Nathan Jones for like a couple of months, and that was and that was that was pretty much a throwback to like the Tony Pulis type sort of football. We suddenly needed to become very direct and very physical, and we didn't have a playing squad for that. So then he went after a couple of months. We inevitably got relegated, and next thing Russell Martin comes in, and we're back to. In spite of what he said on his Gary Lineker interview this week, which I'll come to, but like we went away, so we've gone from like a high press system to just up and out and long ball, and now we're suddenly expected to play like 0809 Barcelona with a lot of control of possession. And I think Martin's probably the most frustrating Southampton manager that I've come across, and for a number of reasons, probably the one I'm the least fond of. Like, it's it. All I'll say is I'm not shocked that now is the time when he's starting to come out in the press a bit more and do a few more interviews and do it because he's shop windowing. And when I listen to him talk about his time at Southampton, on the interview he's done on the rest of his football this week, a lot of it very much comes across as a guy that is. He talks about like preparing like a massive PowerPoint to go in and talk to Jason Wilcox to interview and things like that, and about the type of football and so on. Um, yeah, and just that kind of level of preparation that he puts into that style of play was not conducive to the squad that, like, coming in and looking at what we had and so on. The football was rotten to watch under him, mate. I'll be perfectly honest. Like, there was a point playing Nottingham Forest this season where I was like, this guy's just miles out of his depth. We played one of the most amazing formations I've ever seen. We had a back five, we had three in the middle, and then he had Barrett and Diaz glued to one touchline and Adam Armstrong glued to the other. So mathematically, what did we have going forward? There was nothing. None of the three were like gambling or like making runs. We always struggled with Russell Martin to create chances. And I think, have you got the graphic, Mitch? The Russell Martin graphic. Um, Something that I found with Russell Martin was just that like we never ceased to hemorrhage goals, but we just had tons of possession, but never really did truthfully anything with it. And I think Lineker tried to blame it on us not having a centre forward, and it was like, well, explain how, like, I don't know, like it's interesting when you look at that.
Yeah.
Um, and like on the right hand side is where he finished with these teams, but with pretty much all of these teams, he had like the highest level of possession in the league. And I'm like, yeah, it's great, and I'm sure it looks wonderful, and it gives you like a brand or whatever, but it's not effective. Um, and there's a slight part of me that admires the courage, But I never quite got why our fan base got so swept up with what we were actually watching. Because what we were watching was like really kind of stuttery, non-existent, and you knew we were going to get blown away. And obviously, like, look, the football pervert in all of us loves to see us get promoted through the playoffs. That was wonderful. Um, but once we got there, it was kind of like, ah. And I think last summer I was very like, actually, do you know what? Give this guy. Let's give it. Let's see what happens when we can play his football with players that he wants to bring in. Because in his defence, the sort what he inherited when he turned up at Saints, you lose a lot of that because naturally a lot of these players get picked up. Ward-Prowse goes. A number of other players, like they're either loaned out or they go back to the Prem or whatever. And you think, all right, fair play to the guy. He's tried to like implement his blueprint of football on a squad that he wasn't sure what it was going to be until like a certain part of the season. When he did get that chance, like he went back and he brought players in from Swansea, and he kind of just recruited us into a situation where this current team, as embarrassing as it is, it's very much a legacy of Russell Martin, and I am under absolutely no doubt that if he was still there today, we'd potentially be on less points than we are now. And there was definitely a point like earlier in this season where we had a couple of international breaks and where I thought, do you know what? If the intention is to stay in the Premier League, go now. And I think it was like the October international break. I think after it, the fixtures that we had coming up was Leicester at home, Man City away, which to be fair, you write that one off. Everton at home and Wolves away. And it was a bit like, if we're serious about this, I'd have made a change then. I think when we left him in charge for those 4 games, I was like, it's evident that we're just taking the money here. Like it's a yo-yo thing at this point because any ambition to kind of stay in the league, you'd have known what was going to come. And we did manage to get over the line against Everton. We won 1-0, but Leicester, we blew a 2-0 lead and lost 3-2. City, we lost 1-0. Famously, this is where Guardiola said that he learnt a lot from Russell Martin and then proceeded to go on the worst run he's ever been on in his managerial career, which to this day, I will go to my grave loving that one. And then we went up to Wolves and like didn't muster a shot on target in like a 6-pointer. And it was by that point, it was like, yeah, but no one's going to take like after 6-7 games, there's a chance that someone will come in and try and work with a group of players. We waited until nearly Christmas, and by that point, everyone could see like the direction we were heading in. It's a very small pool of managers that are going to take that on. Martin's football, a lot of the time when we were in possession, forward players looked like they had no clue what they were supposed to be doing. There didn't look like to be any particular sort of plan. Which he kind of hinted at actually, because he said on this like Lineker interview, he was talking about how he doesn't do patterns of play. He just says that like we'll see what we can do, whether like we get into a certain space and it might take 20 passes or it might take one. I'm thinking, but at this level, if you're that ill prepared, like there's a very small percentile of teams that can play like that in world football, not just like in the Prem. He just sounded like he was very ill prepared, and I think there was a growing part of our fan base that I think we're almost just wanting him to succeed because we wanted something to cheer about. And it was just like, dude, this guy clearly isn't right for the job. And I think it will be interesting to see where he goes next. Leicester's being touted, and I think that would be an incredible. Like, if I'm eating my words about this guy in 4 or 5 years' time, fine. But I don't. I think he's going to go down in the Gary Monk category, like young British coach that everyone wants to succeed because he's British. And let's face it, we don't really churn out a great deal of them. Yeah, he's probably going to sort of like waddle into mediocrity, like and into obscurity in all likelihood. But yeah, I'm going to shut up for a bit.
To be fair, you have taken full control and given us the full rundown. So yeah, that's a good effort. To be fair,
Yeah.
I wanted to ask a few things on the recruitment side of things, because obviously between like 2013 and 2018, you was recruiting some ridiculously good players. So you had players like Toby Alderweireld, like Bertrand, Target, Schneiderlin, Wanyama, Højbjerg, Mane, Van Dijk, Tadic, Graziano Pell,
Yeah.
Gabbiadini. Like there were some fantastic players, and then it got to a point that it just kind of seemed to stop. Was that because Tottenham came in and took some of the recruitment team, or who was it? You mentioned someone earlier. I can't remember what his name was now.
Paul Mitchell. Paul
No,
Mitchell was the head of.
it was this Italian sounding fella called.
Cortese. Cortese.
Yeah,
Yeah.
would
Um,
that have been the point where things started to go a little bit wrong from the recruitment side of things?
in the long term, yes, it was. It was probably the beginning of the end. I think we were very famed for this like black box system that we had, where they were just like players that we were looking at all. And like, in fairness, I think that was the one thing we invested in, even at the point where we were starting to look like we were going under. We really, I think we were ahead of the curve in realizing that recruitment was going to be the long term kind of solution. And I mean, like some of the deals that like Cortese wasn't the one doing the recruiting. He was more like the money man behind it. But
Okay.
like Paul Mitchell and those guys, like they had some like there was obviously a lot of very very special deals set up. I think even when that recruitment staff left, I think some of the work that they'd already done meant for the next couple of years we were going to be okay because there was still a database of players there for us to keep tabs on. Gradually, like it that recruitment role became a bit of a hot potato, and inevitably that means that there's very little in the way of strategy.
Yeah.
Um, for example, like when Hassan Hull, the summer before he was sacked, we brought in like sort of like Lavia, we brought in Bella Kotcher, Suleiman. Oh no, not Suleiman. He came in the January. But then, so we're buying for like a very particular sort of type or profile, like. And then in the January, we go Hail Mary with Nathan Jones, and we're signing Paul Onuachu, who, you know, for many reasons is a bit of a cult hero, but probably the wrong reasons, right? You sign Suleimana we brought in at that point, and I'd still say at this point he'd be very unlucky not to be playing in the Premier League next year. Um, but like we suddenly went from that, and then in 6 months we're signing sort of like very direct players were just very sort of like basic direct football, and it's like the recruitment strategy has just been all over the place to the point now where I think one of my mates said to me like we a few months ago we lost 5-0 to Brentford, and my mate was saying like he watched some of it, and he was like and he hadn't watched us play in a while, and he said, look, I knew you guys were bad like in terms of the table, but he went the only way that I can describe it is you guys genuinely play like a group of dudes that have just rocked up at the lodge on like a Sunday morning you've never met before, and you're just like, yeah, cool. You're
Yeah.
playing there, you're playing, and you just, and it's that's kind of what it's got to now. We've had such a mishmash of different styles, um, you know, and then we've had another manager come in, like just before Christmas, Juric. He's obviously gone now, but bless him, I don't know what he was supposed to do with what he was left with, and he tried his best to kind of like sandblast the squad by the end of January by getting rid of certain players and whatever. Whether or not we necessarily agree with the names that went, but we just this is what I'm saying. Like us going down and coming straight back up would be horrendous in the long term. I
Yeah.
think we sort of need to go down, clear out.
Yeah.
There's a lot of names you'd be surprised by if I said we need to get rid of. But you know, like there's we very much kind of need like a strategy that's going to go over another 3 to 5 years rather than you must get back now. I think in the long term that's going to be what kills us. But yeah,
Okay, fair enough. To be fair, for a long time this season, I always used to describe you as like the best, worst team I'd ever seen in the Premier League because you played some lovely little patterns of play, and
mm,
then you was rubbish in your own box, and even worse in the opposition box, and
yeah,
that's what was losing you games. But then when Newcastle played you in January, which is probably the last time I've watched a full Southampton game,
yeah,
you were just terrible. You were just terrible. I
yeah,
couldn't.
awful.
It was like watching Newcastle under Steve Bruce. I couldn't figure out the plan. I didn't know what you was
Yeah.
meant to be doing. I was just like, what is going on with this side? It was crazy.
Mm.
Whereas the first game of the season, you came to St James's Park, and I left that day thinking we're lucky to get a win here, and they're Southampton are going
Yeah.
to be all right.
I think everyone thought that because I mean, I remember everyone saying about how like first half we were fantastic, but think about the goal we conceded. It
I
was
don't
like
even think of what the goal was. It must have been scrappy because we was already down to 10 men. It must have been some kind of scrappy goal.
McCarthy fires a short pass at the left back. Left back miscontrols it. You guys knock it into the box 1-0. And multiply that by God knows how many other times we did it under Martin. But it was just suicidal at points, that football. We were constantly like a frustrated teenager. We'd beat ourselves. You know, it was honestly that's pretty much how we how it went under Martin. It was just yeah, but I mean, and like you say, in patches, I was used to we used to start games quite well. Like the first 10, 15 minutes of the game, we'd look okay. We'd look like we'd have a bit of control, so we'd have a lot of the ball. We'd inevitably concede normally of our own doing, and then just folded. Didn't know what the plan was moving on from that. He's a very I'm really intrigued. I'm actually quite invested in what Russell Martin does next. Because I actually listening to the guy, I can understand why he'd go into a dressing room and like raise morale and stuff like that. The guy speaks really well. I just think when you actually look into a lot of what he's actually saying, there's not enough it's very much like style. It's style over substance is
Yeah.
the best way that I can describe it.
So is it
I'm really intrigued.
is it like you're invested because you kind of want him to do well, or is it one of them ones that it would be more of a hate watch invested? Because I was a little bit like that with Alan Pardew when he left us, because fans from the outside were like, he's not that bad, and he left us, and I was like, I'm gonna make sure I track what he does next because he has to fail to make sure I know that what I was seeing at Newcastle was correct, because everybody was telling me I was wrong.
I think I'm leaning more towards that because there is a part, and I think this is where people get sucked in with him. Like honestly, if you get a chance this week, go and listen to that interview that he does. He comes across really well in places. Like he speaks incredibly well. He comes across as quite a likable guy, and he's obviously had like a fairly difficult upbringing and so forth. And it's like, on a human side, you kind of are like, yeah, do you know what? Like, there's an element of you that thinks, all right, he's doing it his way. Like, it'd be cool if it worked out for him. There's another part of me that just thinks, for the utter tripe that I've had to watch, like in that 18 months, and for what I think the long term damage that strategy has done to us, and what it will be continuing to do to us for another year or two yet, if not more. Yeah, there's a little bit, and I think it's more because our fans were so happy to just sit and accept that. I was like, no, yes, yeah, I think there's an element of it that does become like the Alan Pardew hate watch.
Fair enough, fair play.
Mm.
Fair play. So, would you say that sort of mid-teens team is your favourite Southampton team that you had and brought you some of your favourite moments?
Ooh, yeah, so you probably got to be sort of talking 2013 to sort of like 15, 16 for that.
Yeah.
I was right behind the goal that Mane scored the quickest hat trick in. That was
wow.
amazing.
Okay.
Yeah. Interestingly, right, BBC did a top 10 podcast on like hat tricks, and that wasn't in there. I'm like, I guarantee if he'd done that in a Liverpool shirt, it's like number one. But
Yeah.
like,
100%.
he scored a hat trick in under 3 minutes, and it wasn't even mentioned.
How can
Like,
the quickest Premier League hat trick not be in there though?
Yeah, that's rude.
yeah, it's bad, isn't it? Yeah, but I think I'll get my tiny little violin out, but like I do think that's kind of what it's like supporting a Southampton or a Bolton. We're not like, if you're not like amongst the media darlings, like, again, if an Arsenal player had done it'd be, you'd never hear the end of it, right? It's we do have some like fairly interesting records, like good and bad. There's like the quickest ever Premier League goal was us. It was Shane Long.
Yeah.
We managed to get, well, obviously the two 9-0s, which I did well not to mention. Considering the first one against Leicester was on my birthday, could you imagine that?
My God.
That
is a quit life moment.
Yeah.
That is genuinely a quit life moment.
Like, worst bit is like we're just having drinks in like Walthamstow, and there was like a good few of my mates out, and like it was just, yeah. At one point, I was like, "Have I drunk so much that I'm starting to imagine in some of this?" No,
Crazy.
it legit happened. It was like, and then like
Crazy.
less than 18 months later, we did it again at United.
I
It's
just
insane.
got a
That
really
was
sad image in my head, John, of you with a party hat on, just going.
That I think someone
I
needs to
would
make that.
genuinely
To be
have me
honest, like,
googling local crochet teams and stuff like that. I'd be like, what can I
uh,
support other than this? Anything other than this?
do you know what though? But that's another one of them things where everyone was shocked by it when it happened, except for like a group of Saints fans, because we were like, we've been on. All right, okay. I'd be lying if I said like any of us thought we'd get beat 9-0, but we knew we were onto a pasting the way we were playing at points like at that time. It's like it was only a matter of time before we did get hammered fairly badly by someone. Granted, again, 9-0 is exceptional, but um, mind you, if any team could like beat that record, it's probably the current one. So, like, I don't know. It's like I said, I think I've been very fortunate to see a lot of really cool things. Like going back to what you said, like in terms of like favorite players. I think Virgil van Dijk's the best individual player that I've seen in a Saints shirt in my time
Yep.
of watching. And I'm really lucky because 12 months before that I would have said the same thing about Toby Alderweireld, and it was just sort of in a very very short window we had. And like, I know we talked about this, Mitch, like that annoying graphic that everyone puts up, like the bullseye, like let's have a look at what you could have won, like the potential
Yeah.
Southampton team.
That was going to
Um,
be one of the things I rolled onto to put this myth to bed a little bit, to be fair.
yeah.
Because
Well, for
this is
one,
this is
Angus,
a
like,
lot. You see this every now and again that people go, "This is what you could have won," but that team is across like it's probably across about 15 years worth of football to put all of them players into the
possibly,
same team.
yeah, it would have been because like Bale was gone in 2006, seven, I think, seven, I think it was.
Yeah, I think
Um,
Bale was
the ama-
2007. Yeah,
the incredible thing with us, which sums up our like absolute malaise in the boardroom at the time when we went into administration. Um, Rupert Lowe actually came back because the chairman that then started like frivolously like throwing money around on like aging players, they brought Rupert Lowe back in to work with him to try and claw some of it back. So a lot of the reason we ended up with such a young team the season we went down to League One is because we cleared out a lot of like the experienced players. At that time, we had a sell-on clause for Gareth Bale, and Rupert Lowe managed to negotiate with Spurs that we ditched it and just took a one-time payment. So we got something like in the region of like £3 million. Obviously, like hindsight being 2020, when he went to Real Madrid, the amount of money that would have made us would have been quite crazy. But that, yeah, I mean that would have been like nearly 20 years ago, Bale.
mm.
Uh, Chamberlain, yeah, like that was a long time ago as well. Now when I think about it. Hoiberg,
Well, to be
Ward-Prowse, yeah.
even like obviously Van Dijk would have left what 16, 17.
17 he
Alderweireld a
went,
few
yeah.
years before that. Mane, similar time to Van Dijk. Like it's a long period of time to say this is
Mm.
what you could have had. In theory, yes. And at the time, we're looking at Bale as a right wing forward there. He was
Yeah,
fucking
left back.
left back.
Yeah, it's a
And he
left back.
wasn't a very
He
good
was a
left
left back
back at
for
the
us,
time
yeah.
either.
He was atrocious. He was absolutely appalling at left back. Like he wasn't a left back. Like
Yeah.
like, that was. Um, but then like even with Alderweireld, it was like and with Van Dijk, it's they never would have played together because the only reason we got Van Dijk is that we lost out on Alderweireld.
Yeah.
So I think at one point we had a deal with Atletico that we could have bought Alderweireld permanently for like 5.5 million or something ridiculous.
Mm.
And I think somewhere during that season they went, "Oh, we've screwed up here," and he signed a new deal with them, which kind of waived that. That's where Spurs came in over our heads and got him. So it's like we probably wouldn't have had Van Dijk until losing Alderweireld later on.
Yeah.
So they never would have played together. God,
That's not in that
yeah, I
team.
mean, what's
Would you
that?
say, Jack?
Theo Walcott's not in that team, is
I
he?
was going to say exactly the same thing.
Yeah, true.
But he's not in that team
Yeah.
because of Mane and Bale, to be fair.
Yeah.
Fred.
Does
I mean,
anyone
I
know where
think.
Oxlade-Chamberlain is now?
Oh, it's.
Yeah, he's in
Is it?
Turkey,
Yeah, I
isn't
think
he?
it is.
Mm,
Is it Besiktas? Yeah.
yeah,
Yes.
I had absolutely no idea.
I think Adam Lallana's quite hard done not to be in there. To be honest,
Oh,
like
yeah.
I'd actually like Lallana, Schneiderlin, Wanyama. Like actually,
Yeah, to
Schneiderlin's a
be fair,
classic case.
I would have 100% rejigged that midfield three, personally.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Like Ward-Prowse and Højbjerg are not starting in front of Schneiderlin and Wanyama for me.
No.
But yeah,
In fact, you'd
like
probably
yeah, I
go
mean,
Schneiderlin. You'd probably go Schneiderlin, Wanyama, Lallana.
Yeah.
yeah, you would. I actually
Yeah.
think you would though.
Yeah.
It's like whoever's made this one. But like I said, Angus Gunn in net. Like that's the one that kills me. It's like he was in goal for both. I think he might have been in goal for both of the 9-0s. He definitely was the first one.
Oh,
Like,
so Lallana's your assistant manager now?
yep. Oh yeah. For like another 6 weeks or whatever. But it's what I mean. It's like we've got all this to come in the summer where it's like it's manager roulette again. Then it's a case of the manager's going to come in and actually how much of what's there because amazingly there are still a few of these players that are going to go on and get sold. Some of them rightfully so. Like I still think as much as we're like hemorrhaging goals, that's not a Ramsdale problem. I actually think like yesterday's a really good summary of that. It's like he saves 2 penalties but somehow loses 3-0. Like it's like I think Ramsdale like deserves his move. I really want us to keep Matty Fernandez, but I don't think we're going to. He's like the
Oh,
only outfield player.
he's the one I want. He's the one from
Yeah,
your team. We keep getting linked to Diblin, and I'm like, no, go and get Fernandez. He looks
it's
special.
so funny. Yeah, I'm genuinely just like he's the only outfield player for me that can actually like really hold his head high this season. Um, Dibbling is a really interesting one because it's a classic case of like as soon as the January transfer window slammed shut, he's been a different player. He doesn't take players on anymore. He's very much just like he's playing like a guy that has basically either been told not to get injured
Yeah.
or is basically trying to protect himself to make sure that he gets his move. Wouldn't be stunned if he already knows who his next club are.
Yeah.
Like he's very much playing with that. He's playing with that. Massively highly rated prospect though.
Yeah.
Like I'll be interested to see what he goes on and does. But then there's the other part of me that goes, it's a bit Roy Keane-ish, but I'm a little bit like, if this is your attitude at 18 when you've played like half a season in the Premier League, are you going to end up putting a ceiling on yourself just with like, oh, no, I'm not going to play or I'm going to down tools because like I don't know whether he's that talented that he's going to have the right to say to dictate that, but you know. But yeah, but like I said, the next manager, whoever it is, they're going to have loads of players in and out. Probably not going to know who their team is until like September.
I,
Yeah, I'd be quite happy with a mid-table finish next year and then just going again for a second year.
Yeah.
I've not seen any rumours, but Tyler Dibbling just stinks of a Tottenham Hotspur transfer.
He
Just
does, doesn't it?
absolutely
Yeah.
100%.
stinks of going to Spurs.
Allegedly, 16 of the clubs have inquired about him in the Premier League,
Really?
which I find that very hard to believe. That all that's pretty much take the other two relegated sides out. You probably take Wolves out of that, and you probably take like Palace out of that. I reckon in terms of like what we'd end up. But I can't see how all of those clubs would be interested in him. Like I think the ones that I've heard the most noise about are Newcastle, Spurs, and Man United.
Yeah.
No, I
They're
can
the
almost
three I've
write the
heard the most.
transfer for you, mate. 25 million initial, loaned back to you for a season next year with 25% sell-on clauses to Tottenham Hotspur. Yeah,
It will be it'll be Tottenham or Man United in that
Yeah,
exact way that Jack's just explained. 100%.
I agree with most of that. I just don't think he comes back for the year. Like I don't think he
If he,
comes back
I
for a
don't
year.
think he moves if he doesn't do if the deal isn't
Yeah.
structured that way though, because I don't think he starts for anyone in the top 10 in the Prem.
I'd agree with that bit. I could just see him being a squad player for a bit. And he'll get used in cup games, like particularly if he does go to like if it was like a Newcastle where they've got like extra demands of European football next year, you probably just need the set of legs. Like
He's
I
only like
genuinely,
10 years old, isn't he? Like ridiculously
yeah,
young.
yeah, he's 18,
18.
isn't he?
18.
Yeah,
Oh,
18.
piss
Young.
off, you young, happy bastard.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's a baller though.
I think he needs a season. A season in the Championship could do him for the rest of his career an absolute world of good. Even if it's just to get back winning again.
Yeah,
No.
but I'll start maybe
Sorry,
send him
that
to
wasn't
like
a dig, but-
Ipswich or something then if that's the case. Oh, honestly, like I mean, if we even if we did manage to burgle like over the lot, like the Derby line, if we got to 12 points, I'd still say there's a very big argument to say this is by far the worst Premier League side of all time, irrespective of points. Because I think that Derby side, you could genuinely argue they were just the team that probably punched slightly above their weight to get into and win the playoffs at the time that they did. And in fairness, I don't really remember Derby making like massive changes to personnel when they did come up. So they were effectively just a championship side that had got a championship side that had had a purple patch at the right time and got promoted. I don't think they were ever seriously going to do it. Like with us, like there's players in there that should be hanging their heads in shame with what this has been allowed to become. Like, yeah, get to 12 points if you want. I actually don't. In some ways, a little part of me thinks some of these players don't deserve to get away with it. They need that stink on them. Like, you know, there's a few dobbers in there that deserve the stink being on them for that.
If you're not going to break it, that record will get broken in the next few years. It will. Just the strength of the Premier League. Let's not do that to death. That's a whole other podcast, which we've already even done.
Yeah.
But if I feel that you are probably being quite gracious in what you're saying, but I don't think you want that record, mate.
No, I mean, obviously, of course you don't.
You don't want that record.
I didn't.
No,
to be fair,
no.
I want someone to break that record for very selfish reasons because we gave Derby 4 of their points that season.
Yeah, we gave him 1.
So
between us, James, we give them like what 40% of their points, 45% of their points.
Yeah, it's just bonkers.
I don't know if I'm
5 of 12
correct in saying this. I actually think Newcastle might have been the only team to lose to them.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if that's
I think we
100% true.
were. It was what was the little Scottish rat that's
Kenny Miller.
Clean. Oh,
Kenny Miller. That was
Kenny Miller. Yeah, Kenny Miller.
Kenny Miller
Kenny
scored
Miller, yeah.
absolute weldy at Pride Park against us to make it a 1-0 win.
Yeah, it's funny how you remember stuff like that, but I remember that.
Mate,
It's a Monday night football, if I remember.
It's one of the most depressing Monday night footballs I've ever watched in my life.
I remember watching Nicholas and Elka score past them at Pride Park. And then when we conceded, I remember him just literally looking up and going, "Why the fuck do I play for Bolton Wanderers?" I could see it in his face. I could actually see him just, and all of us were like openly, "Why do you play for us, mate? Just go on to better things, please. It's just not right to see you playing for us." Yeah, and then we scored in the 94th minute to win at home 1-0. So yeah, they nearly had 2 points off us.
That's mad.
There you go. Did you a favour, mate? Another point. You've got no chance of catching him.
Should we try and end it on a slightly more up note? Do you want to put that league table up from 2016? So I mean, I forgot to point this one out.
No,
but
I've got a couple of little upturns to finish on. We'll go with your one first.
Okay, that's all right.
We'll go with your one first. 2016, 2017. This is, isn't it? 15, 16. 15, 16.
So for obvious reasons, when you look at the top of the table, no one's ever going to remember what I'm about to tell you. But if you look closely at where Southampton are, if you look at the fact we're literally 3 points off of a Champions League place that season,
Yeah.
and it's like I think a lot of people, if you actually said to them, "Yeah, like 10 years ago, Saints nearly qualified for the Champions League," they'd be like, "Yeah, all right, whatever."
Yeah.
No, that's a legit thing, and that's so frustrating because if I remember rightly, the kind of like Christmas to the end of Feb, we had an absolutely garbage run where like even if we just sort of like turned a couple of defeats into draws, we might have like stood a better chance, like kind of thing. We sort of like really done ourselves out of Champions League football that year, which would have been insane. Uh, what were your upturns, Mitch?
Well, my one was this moment.
Ah, the JPT.
Yeah.
Everybody loves a win at Wembley. How can you? How can you? That's got to be the best moment you can finish on, surely.
Birmingham lost
I
their
mean,
day in that trophy.
yeah, Birmingham lost that one today. Yeah,
Yeah.
Tom Brady, huh? No, do you know what the depressing thing about this is? I didn't actually get a ticket, because in my hubris, I waited until it went on general sale to drag a couple of mates along, not realizing it would sell out by that point. So I had a chance to just get my ticket and go. Completely like through my own like negligence, bottled it and never ended up being there. I was like, yeah, that was pretty poor going, but we did win there last May, which was, I mean, that was an amazing day out. To be
Yeah.
fair, like there's nothing you can say about like getting to the playoff final and win. It's the best feeling. It's incredible. Like, and that
Yeah,
probably is that could well be the only time I see Saints win at Wembley in my lifetime.
yeah, but
You
that's
know,
it. Winning at Wembley is winning at Wembley, regardless of what the
yeah,
tournament or what the trophy is. It's winning at Wembley. I had this
Yeah.
discussion
exactly.
with a couple of guys that I've played football with for a few years, and they were like, "Well, it's only the Carabao Cup," and I was like, "Hold on, we won a cup 2 seasons ago. We celebrated that cup like we just won the World Cup, but no one gives a fuck.
Yeah.
Like it's
Yeah.
some random cup. It's not even the best cup that we could have won that season, but it's a cup." And we went out and we partied until 4 o'clock in the morning
Yeah,
and drunk out of the cup. Like we just won the World Cup. Like you can't
damn
play that
straight.
down.
Yeah,
You just
Mm.
can't play
it's
it.
100% that.
Yeah, we played on a
Like,
field in front of about 50 people and celebrated exactly the same way any other team would celebrate winning a cup. Like you can't play that
yeah,
down
it's
whatsoever for me.
no, not at all, not at all. It's yeah, it's special. It's a special thing to see, man.
Yeah,
When you're
100%.
like when you're leaving and you see like the big Wembley lights or like winners Southampton and like your badge there, you're like, okay, all right, cool.
Yeah.
Like,
And then you get dickheads like Samir looking down on you because they've won the Premier League and shit like that.
I don't look down on anyone.
honestly,
Just making sure you were
honestly,
still
mate,
listening, Samir.
that's why I was buzzing when you won the League Cup a few weeks ago, because it's like that ain't something that happens every day, man. It's like it it would infinitely have meant more to Newcastle to win that day than Liverpool. Liverpool,
Yeah.
like they'll forget about that.
Yeah.
2 3 months time, they'll they won't talk about it. They won't remember it. Like
Yeah.
for Newcastle, that's like a genuinely special football moment.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, but we'll leave that for when Mitch is in the spotlight, right?
True.
That is still to come. That is
Yeah.
still to come.
But I'm looking
Right.
forward to that.
A couple of little questions before we go. We've
Yeah.
heard your favourite player, which was Ricky Lambert. We've heard your best player. As much as we was going to finish on a positive, let's finish on a more comedic note of
Oh, go on
the
then.
most pointless signing you feel Southampton have ever made.
Oh God. I mean, there's the obvious answer, but this doesn't really fall under my era because the Ali Deer one that doesn't that doesn't really fall under my era, right? Because I
Oh,
figured
George
that's what you
Weah's
might be
cousin.
going with that. George Weah's cousin, yeah, like that was that'd get you a game at Hale End to be fair, but like, God, pointless. Oh, we've had the problem is this is one of them questions where we've had so many that it's hard to find one standing out of the second. Um, damn. I kind of like. I wish I'd known that one in advance, but like, oh, there's been some rotters. There really has. God, I might actually have to answer that one next week. I'm not even joking.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough.
I'm not. I
I
actually,
get
yeah,
it.
I genuinely might have to go away and think about that one. Like,
Yeah.
Fair enough. Fair enough. The only other question I had is, as you was known for a great academy for a little while, great recruitment for a little while, who would be the one player you wish you'd kept?
Ooh.
Lallana, like just
Lallana.
purely for selfish reasons. But like, I mean, he was there when we went into administration. He was like one of the few shining lights at that point. I know obviously like Lettice will always go down as like one of our greatest ever players, Mick Shannon, players like that. But for the teams that I've watched, Lallana was the one that it was the hardest to see playing for someone else because I think like he was there. He was there then. He was there on the way back up, and it would have been lovely to have been in like the Europa League and like watch Lallana playing for us at that time.
Yeah.
You know, yeah.
Fair point. Well, that seems to be that. Unless anybody else has got anything to throw at John before we go.
Just
Can't have
get
heard.
a couple more points.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Just don't be the
Yeah,
first Premier League
we
team.
got-
Yeah, I'm over West Ham next Saturday, so that should be fun. Actually, I need to ask Stocks if he's going. Actually,
I think he is. I'm
good thought.
sure he said that to me yesterday.
Yeah.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I'll drop him a text in a minute then.
All right, sweet, John. You've been fantastic, boys.
amazing.
No, thank you guys. Pleasure. It's lovely. It felt like therapy, to be fair. Like,
Yeah, that's mine did as well, mate. It's sick, innit? It's pretty sick, yeah.
beautiful.
We might have to do it every few months just to make sure everybody's in the
Yeah.
same mental state.
Yeah, I won't be talking about Bolton, mate, from now until next year.
Do you know what? It would actually be funny, like maybe like once or twice a season, to just like split off and have like everyone just gets a 5 minute timer, and you just get to like either rant or talk about whatever's going on at your club at that time. It'd just be funny, like capture
Could
where
be it.
people are at different points in the season.
If we hit a weekend where everybody loses, Sunday will just be a therapy session.
Oh,
We
that'd be
can
great.
just take turns
Oh.
going off on one.
Yeah, that'd be quality.
Let's see
But
if
if we
ever...
all, if there's a weekend where they all win, sure. I mean, we're kind of fucked for that at the moment, but I think that should be like whoever's team scored first, we have to go to a night out in that area.
yeah, what for that?
Oh, tell you what. Yeah, I'll be on that. That'd be super.
Yeah, but I think it's safe to say that's not going to be under threat. I don't think we're going to Southampton this time next year.
I was there last night. I was in Southampton.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. We had one on a night out. It was actually it's quite fun. Nice area. The
Yeah,
first
it's not
time
bad. It's not bad.
You went to watch the fake Murphy twin, didn't you?
The best one. The best one. Good. No, that was fun. That was a good listen about Southampton, to be fair.
Yeah, no, I know. Taught me a lot, to be
Oh,
fair.
thank you,
So
guys.
loving that. Another
Cheers, man.
fantastic
Thank you.
show. Everybody that's watched, thank you. Like, share, subscribe. I will be back tomorrow, SpursKingsTV. And good night, people.